Most people believe that if something has never hurt them before, it cannot hurt them now. They have eaten the same breakfast for 40 years, the same dinner, the same late night routine, and they are still standing. So the logic follows, it must be fine. It is not fine. Not anymore. Not after 70. Here's what nobody tells you when you cross that threshold. The foods that your body once processed with ease, foods that were genuinely harmless at 45, even at 60, can become something categorically different inside a 70-year-old cardiovascular system. Not because the food has changed, because you have. And the consequences of not understanding that distinction are not gradual. They are not slow. In some cases, they are immediate. And the window between eating the wrong thing and an irreversible cardiac or neurological event is shorter than most people would ever believe. I'm Dr. Chima Okoye. I am a cardiac surgeon. I have spent about 30 years repairing arteries torn apart by preventable disease and holding human hearts in my hands at 2 a.m. I have read autopsy reports on people who sat down to lunch with their grandchildren the afternoon before they died. That is not a warning I use loosely. That is something I have lived through, case after case, year after year, and it does not get easier. I have also spent those same 30 years observing a pattern repeat itself with a consistency that no longer surprises me, though it still troubles me deeply every single time. Families arrive in waiting rooms in the early hours of the morning. We trace back the timeline. We look at the weeks before, the months before, the years before, and the contributing factors are never mysterious. They are ordinary, familiar. They are things millions of people over 70 are doing right now in their own kitchens today with no understanding of what they are quietly loading into a vascular system that is no longer built to absorb it. That is why I'm making this video, not to frighten you, to tell you what you should have been told a long time ago. Because what I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes is not theoretical. It is not precautionary. It is a clinical pattern backed by data, backed by research, backed by outcomes I have witnessed with my own hands. If you are over 70, or if someone you love is over 70, I need you to stay with me. What you learn in the next few minutes may genuinely be the most important thing you hear this year. I mean that without reservation. Hit that subscribe button right now. Let's continue. Now, before I name the specific foods, and I will name them directly, I will not be vague about this. I need you to understand one thing first, because without this foundation, what follows is just a list of warnings. With it, everything makes complete and undeniable sense. Here's what is happening inside your cardiovascular system after 70. Not in general terms, specifically, at the level of the arteries themselves. Think of a rubber band, a new one, elastic, flexible, forgiving. You stretch it, release it, and it snaps back instantly. That is what a young artery does. It expands as blood surges through it under pressure, contracts as the pressure drops, absorbs the force, and manages the load. Arterial elasticity. At 40, your vascular system does this brilliantly, almost without effort. Now leave that rubber band in a drawer for 30 years. Pull it out. Try to stretch it. It resists. It is rigid. Pull it too far, and it cracks. That is not a metaphor. That is the clinical reality of arterial aging. After 70, the smooth muscle tissue lining your arterial walls has stiffened. The elastin fibers, the components responsible for that snapback function, have degraded significantly. The collagen structure has changed. What remains is a vascular system that is operating under fundamentally different mechanical rules than it was 2 or 3 decades ago. The same inputs now produce different outputs, sometimes violently different outputs. Your heart is pushing harder to move blood through vessels that no longer yield the way they once did. Your blood pressure is more reactive, more volatile, more sensitive to stimulus. And the endothelium, the single-cell thick lining on the interior wall of every artery in your body, is thinner, more fragile, and far more susceptible to the kind of inflammatory damage that allows arterial plaques to accumulate, narrow the channel, and restrict blood flow to the brain, to the heart, to every organ that keeps you functioning. Here's the part that most people have never been told. After 70, certain foods that may have had a modest, manageable effect on a younger, more resilient cardiovascular system, trigger a biological cascade in that stiffened, inflamed, high-pressure vascular environment that is categorically more dangerous in its severity. The endothelium reacts, blood pressure spikes, inflammatory markers surge, and the timeline between that reaction and a stroke or cardiac event is not days. In some cases, it is hours. That is what I mean when I say the food has not changed. Your system has. And what was once a minor stressor is now, in certain individuals, loading the gun. The foods I am about to name are not rare. They are not obscure. I guarantee at least one of them is in your kitchen right now. And that is exactly what makes the next part of this video so critical. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part that changes how you will think about every meal from this point forward. Number 1. Diet sodas and artificially sweetened drinks. This is the one that unsettles people the most when I bring it up in clinic, because this is not a food someone reached for carelessly. This is a deliberate choice, a health-conscious swap. They gave up full sugar drinks years ago, sometimes decades ago, because they were told it was the responsible thing to do. And in that context, what I'm about to say feels deeply unfair. Here's what's happening inside your body. Artificial sweeteners, particularly aspartame and sucralose, do not behave as inert passengers. A 2023 study published in the journal Nature Medicine found that certain artificial sweeteners, specifically erythritol used in low-sugar products, were directly associated with a significantly elevated risk of clotting events, including stroke and heart attack. But the mechanism runs deeper than one compound. Sweeteners trigger insulin signaling without delivering glucose. Over time, this disrupts metabolic regulation, drives visceral inflammation, and this is the part most people have never been told, alters the gut microbiome in ways that increase systemic vascular inflammation. In a 70-year-old arterial system that is already inflamed and stiffened, that is not a minor addition. It is compounding damage on existing damage. A large prospective cohort analysis from the American Heart Association found that daily consumption of artificially sweetened beverages was associated with a 23% higher stroke risk in women over 65. That number alone should stop you cold. The fix is not complicated. Replace it with water, sparkling water, or weak herbal tea. If you need flavor, a slice of lemon. That is all it takes. How many diet drinks have you reached for this week believing they were the safer option? Number 2, packaged breakfast cereals and granola. I want to be honest with you for a moment, not as a content creator, as a surgeon. This habit is the hardest one to address because the packaging itself is working against you. Words like whole grain, heart healthy, low fat, and high fiber are printed on the front of products that, when you turn the box around and read the nutritional panel, contain between 12 and 24 grams of added sugar per serving. Some contain more per bowl than a chocolate biscuit. Here's the mechanism. After 70, your insulin sensitivity has declined. Your pancreas responds more slowly. Your liver clears glucose from the bloodstream less efficiently. A high glycemic breakfast, even one that presents itself as nutritious, produces a rapid blood glucose spike followed by a sharp insulin response. That cycle, repeated morning after morning, year after year, drives chronic, low-grade inflammation directly within the arterial wall. It promotes the oxidation of LDL particles. It accelerates the formation of the plaques that narrow your coronary and cerebral arteries. The British Medical Journal published findings in 2022 showing that ultra-processed food consumption, including branded cereals, was associated with a 9% increase in cardiovascular mortality per additional daily serving. For people over 70, that trajectory is not recoverable in the same way it is at 50. The fix is specific. Switch to eggs, plain oats with no added sugar, or Greek yogurt with fresh berries. These are not restrictive choices. They are direct replacements with measurable vascular benefit. Does your morning routine begin with a bowl you chose because the box told you it was protecting your heart? Number 3, canned soups, broths, and tinned convenience foods. Here's what surprises most of my patients when I tell them this. This is not a food anyone considers dangerous. It is, for many people over 70, a staple. Practical, quick, easy to prepare. On some days, it is the main hot meal, and nothing about it announces risk. But here's what's happening inside your body. A single can of commercial soup, not a premium brand, a standard supermarket variety, can deliver between 800 and 1400 milligrams of sodium. The recommended upper daily limit for cardiovascular health in adults over 70 is 1500 milligrams total. One can, one meal. And sodium at that concentration does something specific and acute in an aged vascular system. It draws fluid into the bloodstream, expanding blood volume, forcing the heart to pump harder against arteries that have already lost their capacity to dilate and accommodate. Blood pressure spikes, the endothelium strains. In patients with any degree of pre-existing arterial narrowing, and after 70, most people have some, that spike is not trivial. It is a loading event. The Journal of the American Medical Association found that a sustained reduction in daily sodium intake of just 1,000 milligrams produced an average systolic blood pressure reduction of 6 points across adults over 65. That is the equivalent of a meaningful medication adjustment. In the other direction, the same amount adds that pressure back every single day. The fix is straightforward. Choose low sodium or no added salt versions, or prepare simple broths at home where you control the sodium entirely. If you rely on tinned food as a regular part of your weekly meals, do you know what is actually in each serving? Number 4, fried food. This one you already suspected, and you are right to suspect it. But the reason most people give, the fat content, is only half the picture. Bear with me because the other half is the part nobody explains. Here's the mechanism. Oils subjected to sustained high heat undergo a chemical transformation called oxidation. They produce compounds called aldehydes and oxidized lipids. These do not behave like ordinary dietary fat. They enter the bloodstream, bind directly to LDL particles, render them smaller, denser, and profoundly more inflammatory, and drive them into the arterial wall with a force and efficiency that unoxidized fat does not. In a 70-year-old vascular system, the endothelium cannot neutralize that insult the way it once could. Plaque forms faster, the channel narrows further. A 2022 meta-analysis in the British Medical Journal examining over 750,000 participants found that the highest levels of fried food consumption were associated with a 28% higher risk of major cardiovascular events. For adults over 70 with arterial stiffening already present, that risk does not exist in isolation. It stacks. The fix is not elimination. It is method. Bake, grill, steam, or air fry. The food is the same, the oil transformation is not. How many times this week has fried food appeared on your plate without you giving it a second thought? I want to pull all of this together into something you can actually use, not a catalog of fears, a structure, a daily framework that addresses each of these 4 risks without turning your life into a clinical project. I call it the Okoye Vascular Daily Reset, and it fits inside an ordinary day without a single dramatic change. Here's how it works. Morning, between 7 and 9 a.m. This is the most consequential window for vascular health after 70 because your body's metabolic response to glucose is at its most influential in the first 2 hours after waking. Choose eggs, scrambled, poached, boiled. Plain oats with no added sugar topped with fresh berries. Greek yogurt, whole food. Nothing from a box making cardiovascular promises on the front panel while concealing 18 grams of added sugar on the back. Replace the diet soda with water or herbal tea. Not as a declaration, just this morning, and then the next one. Midday, between 12 and 2 p.m., fresh protein, fish, chicken, legumes. If you are heating something from a tin, check the sodium panel before you open it. 400 milligrams per serving is your ceiling. Above that, it stays on the shelf. Low sodium alternatives exist for almost every tin product you regularly buy. Use them. By 6 p.m., fried food is off the method list for the evening. Not off the menu, off the method. Bake it, grill it, steam it, air fry it. The seasoning carries the flavor. The oxidized oil only carries the damage. And throughout the day, not all at once, not as a performance of health, drink water. Still, sparkling with a slice of lemon if you need something to reach for. That is all it needs to be. That is the Okoye Vascular Daily Reset. Morning window, sodium ceiling, evening method, hydration baseline, 4 adjustments, 1 framework, not a diet, a decision about what your arteries are exposed to every single day of your life from this point forward. I want to be honest with you for a moment, not as a content creator, as a surgeon. I've stood at an operating table at 3 in the morning holding a heart that stopped because of damage that began years, sometimes decades before that night. Damage with no dramatic announcement, no threshold the body crossed visibly, no warning where something inside sent up a signal and said, this is where it tips. This is where it becomes irreversible. It accumulated quietly, invisibly, meal after meal, morning after morning, year after year, until the weight of it became something I was holding in my hands in a theater while a family sat in a waiting room down the corridor in the dark, not yet knowing what the morning was going to bring them. I have walked into those rooms. I have sat with those families at dawn. And in case after case, when we trace back the pattern, when we look honestly at the months and years that preceded that night, the contributing factors are never mysterious. They are diet drinks chosen in genuine good faith because someone had read that sugar was the enemy and made the responsible swap. They are cereals eaten from boxes with the words "heart healthy" printed across the front in green lettering. They are soups heated from tins because it was a Wednesday and nobody felt like cooking. Fried food eaten without a second thought because nothing obvious had gone wrong yet. These are not rare exposures. They are the background texture of millions of ordinary lives. And that background texture, accumulated night after night, year after year, becomes the event that nobody saw coming because nobody knew to look. I want you to look. That is all this video has ever been asking. So let us bring it home. 4 foods, 4 fixes, nothing new, just the decisions stated plainly, so you leave here with something you can act on today. 1. Diet sodas and artificially sweetened drinks. Replace them with water, sparkling water, or herbal tea. Not eventually, today. 2. Packaged cereals and granola. Read the back panel, not the front. Switch to eggs, plain oats, or Greek yogurt with fresh berries. That is a complete morning. 3. Canned soups and tin convenience foods. 400 milligrams of sodium per serving is your ceiling. Above it, the tin goes back on the shelf. No exceptions. 4. Fried food. Change the method, not the meal. Bake it, grill it, steam it, air fry it. The food is identical. The lipid damage is not. No supplements, no protocols that cost money, no version of your life you would no longer recognize. 4 decisions made consistently inside a vascular system that will respond measurably, genuinely to every single one of them. That is all it takes, full stop. Which of these 4 do you recognize in yourself? I have a strong feeling at least 2 of them hit closer to home than you were expecting when this video began. You are not alone in that. Tell me in the comments, which one surprised you most? I read them, I respond when I can, and what you write there matters to me far more than the numbers on this channel ever will. There is someone in your life, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, someone over 70 who has never once connected a diet drink or a tin of soup to their stroke risk. Someone still eating from a box because the box told them it was the responsible choice. Send this to them, not as a warning, as something you found and wanted them to have. I don't run ads. I don't push supplements. I don't take brand deals. Every video on this channel exists for one reason, because what happens in that operating theater at 3 in the morning should not have to happen as often as it does. That is not a legal disclaimer. That is genuine advice from a surgeon who wants you still watching this channel 10 years from now. Take care of your heart. I mean that.